next, we're hearing on the next level from companies that are already scaling regional, even national, and how they're growing their business and all the things they're doing from distribution to new product. So we have Katy Keiffer from the What Doesn't Kill You podcast on the Heritage Radio Network. Recommend you listen to that, subscribe to that. She's going to be moderating a conversation with Cathryn Kennedy of Wright's Dairy Farm up in Smithfield, William Bigelow from Blount Foods, which for those of you who don't know is really actually one of the biggest soup producers and much more in the nation, and Nicole Baum from Gotham Greens, which is really disrupting the way we think about lettuce agriculture and indoor agriculture. So thank you all for joining us right now. Katy, I will pass it to you.
Hey, Avi, thank you so much. Yeah, so I thought we would start by quickly having everyone introduce themselves. Why don't we start with Nicole from Gotham Greens? That's Nicole Baum, and follow that with Kate or Cathryn Kennedy, and then finish off with Will Bigelow, and then we'll talk about some of the things that they're working on. So, so Nicole, why don't you kick it off here and tell us, just, like give us 2 minutes on Gotham Greens and what your involvement has been in growing that company, because it really is so unusual.
Sure thing. Thanks so much for having me. So yes, I'm Nicole Baum. I'm the Director of Community and Partnership Marketing at Gotham Greens. And we are a local produce brand and fresh food company with a 100,000 square foot hydroponic greenhouse in Providence, Rhode Island. For all of you New Englanders, you have likely seen our greenhouse on the side of the highway while driving down 95. But we're growing a line of lettuces and herbs, as well as producing a line of salad dressing and pesto. And you can find them at local supermarkets like Whole Foods and Shaw's, Big Y, as well as Dave's and others. So we started this business about a decade ago in New York City, really with the mission of addressing where and how fresh produce is grown. The majority of it is typically coming from California or Arizona. And so we really wanted to disrupt this kind of conventional model by creating a network of regional greenhouses throughout the country. So our Providence greenhouse, we actually just celebrated our first birthday last week. Pretty exciting. And while we initially started with rooftop greenhouses in New York City, we've now kind of expanded to this regional model where we have greenhouses throughout the country. And so our mission really remains the same, to kind of change how and where fresh produce is grown. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, more?
I was just going to mention, as a native Rhode Islander, I just wanted to say thanks for having me on the panel. I grew up a big fan of Wright Dairy and enjoying Blount seafood. So really appreciate the opportunity.
Fantastic. Kate, you want to give us a couple of minutes of Wright Dairy Farm history?
Sure.
So how many generations are you? Let me just ask. Let me start by that. What generation are you?
I'm 5th generation.
Yes.
So I am Kate Kennedy. I'm 5th generation at Wright's Dairy Farm and Bakery. My family has been in business in Northern Rhode Island for over 100 years. Many of you know us as like a bakery with cakes and desserts, but we really started out as a dairy farm with a home delivery route, and that carried us into the 70s. And then my grandparents made the decision to get rid of the home delivery route and open up the farm store that we have now grown and expanded on, but it's still in the original location. In the 80s, my mom got involved with the business and really grew the custom cakes and specialty orders. So now the business is a lot of bakery focus. And since I've come into the business, my position is the head of dairy processing, operations, and sales. So I've really been pushing milk sales. How can we increase what we're selling? Diversify our products by introducing ice cream and opening up an ice cream shop. And then we're continuing to grow on ice cream, and we'll hopefully be launching a specialty pint that we'll sell at different wholesale locations. So that's kind of where we're headed and where we've been.
Amazing. So you guys have made the leap out of Rhode Island and into a bit more regional distribution. And we're going to talk about that once we hear from our pal Will Bigelow from Blount Seafood, which turns out to be this, the big kahuna here in the room. I mean, holy smokes, you guys.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for having me. I guess we are probably the largest manufacturer, maybe on the call. Started off in Warren, Rhode Island as a seafood processor years ago, but then diversified into prepared foods such as soups and sauces. We are now a $500 million company with 4 facilities: Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Texas, right outside of Dallas, and our 4th facility coming online in Portland, Oregon this summer. So we can continue domination of the soup world on the West Coast. So that's really our motto, but try to keep, focused on quality and also on diversification. We've expanded quite a bit outside of soup into side dishes such as mac and cheese, etc. And our latest expansion has been in fresh prepared entrees that a consumer can heat up in 2 to 3 minutes. So really trying to stay ahead of trends, create the trends, and be innovators within the industry.
Thanks so much, Will. So the thing that we talked about together when we had the prep call for this panel were sort of 2 crucial aspects. And one of them, which I thought was so telling just about the state of Rhode Island itself, is the kind of collaborative nature that people in the food business tend to express as kind of a matter of course. It's part of the culture of being in the food industry, right? Is that you share not just food, but you share ideas, you share, processes or whatever. So Nicole, let me start with you. Talk a little bit about how Gotham Greens has been able to work across business sectors in finding clients or working with other clients. Like for instance, we had a little chit chat on the prep call where you said to Kay, well, maybe we should sell you some basil. You can make some basil ice cream, like,
yes,
talk
please.
about how you guys can do work with other businesses in the community here.
Yeah, absolutely. So collaboration is very much a part of the DNA of our company and our brand. Whether that's like working with local community groups and donating fresh produce, or hiring from our local neighborhoods, that's just who we are. But kind of in building our brand, we try and be very creative in terms of how we're partnering with other brands in the region. So for example, when we launched about a year ago in Providence, we worked with a company called Farm Aesthetics. They make natural body products, and we provided them with some of our basil, and they made this like beautiful basil facial spritz that we gave out at our launch party. Just an example of a wonderful wellness focused natural beauty company that we were able to come up with kind of a creative collaboration. We also worked with Long Live Brewing Company and did a basil beer, which was kind of fun for that launch party, as well as a basil raspberry donut with Need Donuts in Providence. So, I think we try and think beyond just kind of one specific industry, and our goal is to be a household brand. And so we really look beyond just the produce aisle in terms of how we can really activate our brand.
Are you selling into institutions at all, or it's just
We are, yeah. Yep. So we've been talking to Brown and RISD and Rick and Johnson and Wales, of course. And yeah, we work with large scale caterers and food service groups, restaurants. We've even done some collaborations with Delta Airlines. So it's beyond just going to the grocery store and interacting with consumers at the shelf. We really want to be kind of part of their lifestyle as well.
So partnering, I'm going to address this to all 3 of you, but Kate, you haven't had a chance to talk yet. But I just want to say something about the partnering idea and the collaborative idea, that when it comes to building a business or building your brand, it's kind of, creating those relationships is a big, sounds like a big part of how you are growing your business in general. And Kate, I'm going to let you jump in here and talk a little bit about your ice cream line, because that's new for your business. And that's another place where you can interact not just with consumers, but make partnerships with other companies as well. So go ahead and give us a little spiel about how you guys are working with other businesses or other partners to grow your own brand.
Sure. It's for me, it's super exciting because we also make our own milk and we also make our own ice cream. We get to collaborate on like two different levels. One being I get to invite different ice cream producers to come to the farm and teach them about where milk comes from and how we produce our milk and why our milk tastes so different, and really show them the entire process from cow to cup. So I get to be a support system to these other manufacturers. And then at the same time, we have this ice cream brand. So we get to pull in, we've worked with Need Donuts and done Sundays that feature their donuts. We actually did a pop-up at Need when we were first starting with ice cream. And we've been talking with Aura from Aura's Chocolates about how we can incorporate some of her chocolate into one of our ice creams, whether it's like a limited edition, like extra dark, featuring, she makes her own melting chocolate, which is like, for us, that's really cool. Cause when she came to visit, we were just like talking shop and so excited about like having all these common issues and working through them. And then, yeah, just on the call the other day with Nicole, she was like, basil ice cream. And I was like, I have my ice cream maker was so happy to hear that. She's always pushing different herbs, and it's like not exactly our clientele, but she's super excited. So I'm sure we can make that happen.
I think that's something interesting that you could sell into restaurants without any problem at all. You know, into a fine dining establishment, you do a limited edition of basil ice cream and see what happens. Maybe it's a basil sorbet. Of course, that would cut the milk part of it out. But we'll talk a little bit about, because I know you work with Hope in Maine, and so your company is now so big that we're sort of beyond talking about what partnerships you make. I know you guys are partnered up with Panera Bread, for example, because you mentioned that you're their exclusive soup supplier. But in terms of partnering on the smaller scale, I want you to talk a little bit about how Hope in Maine collaborates with startup businesses and tries to get them sort of launched in all sorts of different directions, including towards people like Kate Kennedy or towards Nicole Baum at Gotham Greens.
Sure. So it's two parts to that answer. Is we, even though we do have a large scale manufacturing, we try to also be as involved as we can with the local economy, and the fact that we do a lot with Dave's supermarkets, Clements. So we'll work with them. You know, even like we do some of Dave's products, because it's just a good fit, and they're, you know, it's building those relationships at the local level. It's where it all starts. So we definitely pride ourselves on that, and don't overlook that, even though we have a national reach. As far as Hope in Maine goes, that's the real fun part, because you're meeting individuals that have great ideas and great, you know, kind of great start to these new businesses and this new innovation. So it's really being able to share our experiences with them on how, you know, to make them successful from where they are into where they, you know, where they want to head. We've made, myself personally, a lot of mistakes over my career in helping build the company. So it's, you know, being able to pass on those learnings to that team, to the Hope in Maine team, or to their clientele, you know, to avoid those mistakes and kind of help guide them through the industry, whether it be through distribution, manufacturing, or even at the retail level.
Right, right. But basically the name of the game is collaborate, make partnerships, make friends. It's not just all about sell, I guess is the point I'm trying to make here. It's like, who do you have friends with? Who are you friends with? Who do you make relationships with? And how do you help each other? And I think that's sort of the thrust of where I'm trying to go with this part of the panel. And then we'll talk in a minute more about scaling up, which you will have a lot to say about for as well. But
it's exactly right. I mean, it's a huge industry, but it's a small industry. It's crazy how everybody knows everybody within the industry, and you know, opportunities like this kind of even link it together even more so. So it's really about building those relationships, and that's what really helps build your business throughout the years.
And it's how you learn from other people, right? You, as you just said, you know, you teach each other. Like, you made a mistake when you launched such and such a product. Well, how could I have done that better? You're looking at somebody else who's trying to launch their product and, well, let me offer you this piece of information that happened to me. Maybe it's not the same for you, but here's how it is. Because we're now at the 15-minute mark and I don't want to, I want to have time for a couple of questions at the end. So I want to talk, I want to go back to our Kate here, our dairy maid. Kate, you said you had just started, this is your baby, the ice cream business, right? So talk a little bit about what it's taken to both start that business and then start to expand it outside of Rhode Island and into other states in a sort of methodical way. How are you achieving that?
Yeah, so I am super lucky to have been given the opportunity to even grow this little project of mine. I've been working at the farm for just over 5 years, and first couple of years I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, so I had to figure out what's going on. And then of course I started getting a little bit bored, and when I'm bored I find things to get myself into trouble. So we were already making ice cream, but it was really no one was putting any love into it. And I thought, oh my gosh, this will be great. June is dairy month and we'll do 4 pop-ups one day, 4 hours. It'll be so great. And everyone really loved it. And so the next year we did every week. And then after that, it was kind of all right, people, we have all this momentum. What are we doing with it? And I actually took the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. And for anyone who is in Rhode Island or anywhere in the country that they have one of those sites, I highly recommend it. I actually did my growth plan on launching home delivery. And after going through all of the process was that's not happening. We're not doing home delivery. We're opening an ice cream shop. So I had kind of that background in all of the advising from that program to help me think about growth strategically. But I used the pop-ups for momentum, and then actually went to Penn State's ice cream course, which is a week-long intensive down at Penn State. And it was the best thing ever. I was top 6 in my class, which I was really proud of.
Hey.
And then right after that, we were okay, we had looked at a couple spots out on the farm where we could maybe rehab a building or put up a building, and everything was just going to be super timely and costly. And we thought, well, why don't we get a trailer? As soon as you put it on wheels, the regulations shrink to this big. We don't have to take it anywhere. We can just have it pretty much set up on site. So we ended up working with a company actually out in Wisconsin who found our trailer, which is a 1966 Streamline trailer. We had a order and pickup windows, and the inside is totally food safe. So it's a epoxy floor, FRP on the walls, and people really love it. I didn't realize how much people would actually love the trailer. And this year with COVID, we were really worried. We're it's so small in there. How are we going to distance? And we ended up starting the season all through car hop. And then we moved into the trailer at the beginning of August, and it was definitely, everyone was so happy to have it back. It was a sense of normalcy for everyone.
Sure.
So yeah, I guess for me, it was great to have this whole support system of this other business. So if you can find an advisor or someone to kind of shepherd you along, that also gave me a lot of resources. But it's really I talked to anyone who would listen to me and bounce ideas off of to try and, keep things moving to the next level.
Right. Nicole, you guys see, now I remember Gotham Greens when it was really, it hadn't even opened yet. It was the first year I was doing my podcast, and your head horticulturalist, whose name eludes me now.
Jen, she's a rock star. Yeah.
Yeah. She came on the show and we just loved her. We actually had her on 2 or 3 times because we did many, many shows around urban agriculture, which was really just getting its start 10 years ago, 11 years ago. Yeah. So how did Gotham Greens go from being, I forget what it was. It was basically a square mile on top of or a square acre on top of a building in Queens. And now you have 5 huge facilities, or 6, 8. Forgive me, but in 4 or 5 different cities now. So how did you guys know what to do when it came to scaling up? How did you figure that out?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we figured it out as we went along. But fortunately, our founders are really smart and also risk takers, and they really, from very early on, I think they were in a grocery store in New York City, and they just realized like the basil they were buying was from Israel.
Right.
And they just realized that there was an opportunity to grow this highly perishable produce in cities. And so they looked to find a piece of real estate to grow this produce on, and quickly realized that it would have to be very expensive greens if they were going to grow it and sell it in New York City. And so they started to look to rooftops, and they built this commercial scale half-acre greenhouse, state-of-the-art hydroponic. And so it had really excellent yields. A half-acre produced that of like a 10-acre soil-based farm. And we were fortunate to attract customers like Whole Foods Market very early on. So went on to build a farm on top of a Whole Foods in Brooklyn. And yeah, now have expanded. So we have 3 in New York City, 2 in Chicago, and then 1 in Providence, 1 in Baltimore, Maryland, and 1 in Denver, Colorado, where I'm calling from today. Yeah, so I think honestly, it's started with, really strong partnerships. It started with, taking some risks and really trying to disrupt something that was not really working well for consumers and was really leading to a lot of food waste. And yeah, we have a great team.
Reading a trend. That's the thing because you guys read a trend. And Will, I'm going to loop you in on this, because your company went from really a pretty basic seafood company, right? And then suddenly you guys took this risk and you started manufacturing soups. Isn't that what you started with, was soups, when you started into the prepared food sector?
Correct.
And so what was that? What was the catalyst for that move? Like, how did you guys arrive at that as the niche that you wanted to occupy, and then expand that into a national brand like Panera Bread?
Well, it's twofold. One was, there's limitations what you can really do with clam meat besides, clam cakes, clam chowder, and have a clam shack. So we really were trying to diversify what the use for that raw material. And then secondly was we had some requests if we could manufacture frozen soups for some small restaurant chains. So we started down that avenue, but really where we saw the opportunity was to convert this from a frozen. How do we get people outside of the center aisles, the center store, and gravitate to the perimeter and build that category in fresh food? And that was kind of the revolution of it and kind of the start of the company. So really being able to pioneer that and get the shelf life down so we could distribute nationally. And that's what kept kind of growing us.
Right. Fascinating. I mean, we could go on and on about this, because I mean, literally growing your brand out of a small region and into a national brand. I mean, Wright Dairy isn't there yet, and Gotham Greens is on its way. So we're looking at 3 companies that are each at a particular stage of growth, which I think is fascinating. It's one of the reasons why I really enjoyed talking to all of you both the other day and today. And so I wonder, since we're going to have to give it up for a couple of Q&A type moments, does anybody have a last statement to make about, like, let's talk just for a second about trends. Like, Will, let's stay with you for a second and talk about what was the trend that you identified, like that prepared foods were more mainstream, that soups were more popular, or was it really just you came to this out of necessity, meaning that you had to figure out a way to get rid of all this clam meat you had?
It was start with necessity, but we also quickly realized that fresh foods were growing in popularity, and then that converted over to convenience. And so really where we're clean comfort, we call it, making sure our ingredient statements are, we don't look at it from a nutrition aspect. We make some unhealthy stuff, but it's clean ingredients. And just the convenience of that mom or, dad or kiddo that can heat it up in 3 minutes or less.
Right. And then with Gotham Greens, of course, it's hydroponic. So you want to talk about convenient. Oh my God. It's just like you pop it out of its little container and right into your salad bowl, put your dressing on, right, Nicole?
Yeah, we don't have to rely on soil, and we can grow all year round in and around cities. So that's definitely a convenience factor. But we really started our business seeing the trends around, better for you category. People are looking to eat better, looking to make healthier decisions that had a positive environmental footprint. So we really have kind of started with the seed in New York, and now it's really expanded nationwide.
Fantastic. Congratulations to you all. I mean, really well done. It's amazing work you've done. It's just so impressive. And Kate, my dairy friend here, you and I will be talking later because I'm going to need you on Monday. And then you're next, Nicole. But I just want to talk a little bit about, because ice cream, milk in general has been getting a bad rap. So being able to push back against that, how have you guys, we're going to wrap it up with that, but how have you guys been able to push against the bad rap that milk gets and at the same time promote the health benefits of fresh milk, of local milk, of that kind of stuff? Like, is that part of your marketing platform?
It's definitely something that we think about every day. And we get, you get one person who sends this crazy rant. And for me, I always just say, come to the farm and spend an afternoon with me. And then tell me that the products that I make are garbage and I'm killing the planet. Like, give me a day, give me a day, because it's a huge industry and we didn't get here overnight. I went to school for sustainable ag and in Western Mass. And I came back and was like, oh my God, like we're feeding GMO corn, like the world's over. And the reality is like, there's so much in it. And I know I've seen it from every side and every angle. So I really we try to have the farm open. You can see our cows being milked. Our barns are open. We have nothing to hide.
That is what's so important about your product, I think, is that people think of dairy, and I personally think of, 15,000 cows stuffed into a giant barn in Iowa or Wisconsin, standing in, up to their fetlocks, and, you know what I mean? So when you can see a beautiful working farm like your farm or Emma Acres or one of the other farms around here, which I've visited quite a few of them, it's a real plus for your sales. So let's open it up for a couple of questions. Does anybody have a question for any of the panelists about how they got where they're going, or what what was the seed that propelled them onto the work that they're doing now?
I see Aaron has a couple questions. Aaron, why don't you just unmute and share and choose which one you want to ask?
All right, so I had a question for Will, since you mentioned that mistakes have been made. And I think that a lot of food entrepreneurs at every stage of their life can kind of relate to that, right?
Sure.
You now are moving into a position where you're guiding newer businesses through this. Are there kind of some mistakes that you kind of hone in on and say, hey, this one is avoidable? Like, this is a common misstep. What would you tell people to avoid? That third rail almost.
You got to keep an open mind even to your product line. So sometimes people are so excited about their particular item that maybe you don't want to change maybe an attribute of it that might be more acceptable to a wider audience or a greater range of consumers. So for instance, I was convinced a few years ago, if we launch a line of purely organic soups, that was going to change the company. And, after $50 in sales, realized, maybe we should have looked to a broader audience of consumers. So it's just being able to, keep an open mind and keep, have a product you believe in, but pivot a little bit so you can make it more adaptable.
Excellent. Thank you.
How about Kate? You have something to say about that with the ice cream? Have you had any missteps with that?
Oh, every day is trial and error. No, I definitely feel like for the first time in 5 years, like in the past 3 months through COVID, like I've had the same team of people, and we were all I've been kind of like gathering the people that I need to have on my team in order to make this like a big thing and actually generate some serious sales from it. And I feel like we went through war after COVID, and it's like we're all in it together, and having the right people is really important.